Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to another episode here on African Confessions. The following story that you're going to be listening to, it was sent to me by our dear brother. The message that he sent to me reads like this. Hello, Brother Nashi, how are you? Can you please post my own story as hidden identity? My brother, my story, it goes on like this. It happened when I was, I think, about 15 years. That was when one of my elder brother's best friend got killed. So I was born in a family of only boys. We were 7 boys, but now only 3 amongst the 7 boys that my mom gave birth to are remaining. The other 4, they have died. And when this thing started to affect us in our family, it started to happen somewhere. It was in the year 2006 to 2007. That was when my brother's best friend got killed, and 2 of my brothers, they knew everything that had happened. So my brothers, what they used to do, including me, I do not want to lie, even though I was really young, like my brothers, they would go and they will start to dig illegally for the gold. So, you know, when you are an illegal gold miner, you operate as a syndicate, and there a lot of things can happen. People can get killed after you have gotten the money. So my brother's friend, he was working in South Africa at that time, and when he returned back home, he then spoke with my brother, and he said that he wanted my brother to help him so he can sponsor. He wanted to sponsor those illegal gold miners. So what they do is that they would go underground, then they will be digging up for the gold. So this gold, it will be inside these granite rocks. So you have to load those granite rocks in the tippers. And then the tipper will take the load to the mill so that they can grind those granite. Then they will start to select the gold. So it is a long process, and most of these illegal gold miners, they would need a sponsor who can buy some food, buy some beer for them, as well as some cigarettes, clothes, and things like that. So he had a little bit of money that he had saved when he was in South Africa, so he wanted to invest that money. And after my brothers had dug up for the gold with their syndicate, it then came time for them to divide the money. So this man, when he had returned back from South Africa, he had some connections of his. There were 2 white men that came to buy this gold after it had been processed and refined. So when they were given their money, my brothers, then that was when they went out to celebrate, to drink some alcohol. Already my brothers, they had targeted this man who ended up getting killed. So when they were busy drinking their beer, it was said that they came this other group from another syndicate, and then they had their own prostitutes that they had with them. So that man who was my brother's friend, he started dancing with one of that prostitute, and when he was told to stop dancing with their prostitute, he thought that he had a good backup because my brothers, they were well known in that area. So he beat up that young man. The young man then ran away, and my brothers, they saw the opportunity to steal more money from this man because he had the money inside the car that he had bought. Instead of him returning back to his wife with the money that he had, he was keeping a bag that was full of US dollars and some gold that he had not yet exchanged for money. So my brothers saw that opportunity. That was when they decided to plan with that other syndicate. They spoke, and then they pushed. That was when my brothers spoke with that other syndicate, and they said that if the syndicate was going to help them to rob this man of his money and some of the gold that he had, then they were going to divide after they would have robbed him. So this man, he didn't know that he was being led into a trap. It was said that my brother then convinced him to move from that area where they were drinking beer, and they went to another tavern where they were now drinking their beer. Whilst they were there, the same young man came to him and he confronted him, and he said, "So you think that you are clever? When we were at that other tavern, why did you beat me up?" That man thought of doing the thing that he had done before, of beating him up. But when he had started beating him up, that was when some members of that young man's syndicate then got up from where they were sitting, and they took out their big machete knives. Then they started to attack him. So he thought that my brothers were going to assist him, but unfortunately they all ran away because they knew what they were doing. And then that man, he got stabbed. The way that he got stabbed, he was busy fighting with two of those men that were attacking him. So when he was fighting with the one who was holding a big knife, unfortunately they both fell to the ground, and that was when he saw that he had stabbed someone. So the rest of the crew came rushing and said, "Look what you have done, you have killed our brother." Then they started to stab him mercilessly, and he died. As for my brothers, they rushed to his car after they had seen him crying out for help when he had got out of that tavern crying for help, but they ignored him. They knew that he was about to die anyway. They just robbed him of his money and the gold, and they even searched him. So that is what my brothers and the other syndicates did. So since my brothers, they were never part of the fight, they were not arrested at all, because the gold, like when the relatives said that this man, we knew that he was sponsoring this syndicate so that they can dig up for the gold. So they had nowhere to go and report to, because these were like your illegal activities anyway. And my brothers, when they were visited by the CIDs, they totally refused, and they said that they had never worked with this man, and my brothers, they were never arrested. It was only some of the guys from that other syndicate that had been seen stabbing him when he had fallen down. Some of them, they were arrested. Even right now, they are still in prison. I heard that one of the guy was given 56 years behind bars, and he was the main one who was seen by a lot of people as he was stabbing him all over his body. So after this man had passed away, the very next morning, everyone in our village rushed to the place where this man had died because of the things that we heard his family was doing. So the family then came there, and they took some of the knives that had been used to stab this man to death. They took that knife, and on the day when his body was taken from the mortuary, the car that had his coffin, it drove past through that tavern, and then they actually removed the coffin from the car. Then they removed his corpse. It was really hard to watch, even though I was young at that time, but I still remember everything. They placed his body to the place where it was said that he took his final breath, and when they placed his body on the ground, then they took that knife that was stained with blood, and then they made him to hold that knife. They did a lot of rituals, and they commanded his spirit to wake up again so that it can go and fight against those that killed him. From there on, they lifted his body and they made him to lie in the coffin again, and they closed up the coffin whilst he was holding that knife. From there on, we then followed the car that had his coffin, and the next step was at our compound. They came to our compound, but they did not enter into our compound. My father then came out holding a long hunting knife, and he threatened them, and he said, "If you are going to bring that coffin into my compound, then know that today you are going to kill me, but before you would have killed me, I am going to kill some of you." So they were afraid of my father. What they did is that they just placed the coffin of their dead relative, and so what they did is that they placed the coffin that had their dead relative lying inside of it. Then they did their rituals, and they told that man who was lying dead in that coffin a lot of things, and told him that if he ever wants to come back to fight against his enemies, then he needs to consider my brother fighting against my brother, because it was known that my brother was the one who had organized this fight that had ended up killing his friend. So from there on, they lifted the coffin, then they went back to their compound, and this man, he was then buried, but he was buried as he was holding that knife that was said to have killed him, the final knife, the knife that stabbed him just before he had died. So those were some of the scary stuff that happened on the day that this man was buried. After this man had been buried, one of my brother, he then started to see the ghost of this man, and some of the guys that were arrested, 2 of them, they died in prison. And as for 4 of my brothers, the ones who have since passed away, the way that they died, it was really scary. None of them ever had a peaceful death. They all died in a violent way, and 2 of my brothers, they ran away and they went to South Africa. But my brother, he contacted my father, and he told my father that he was seeing the spirit of his friend. So my father then encouraged him not to return to Zim, but to at least try to go and stay in Namibia. So that is where they are staying. They even got married to their Namibian wives, and before they had left, my brother, he had invested some of the money that they had gotten from that deal that went wrong. But when we look back at the businesses that they invested before they had traveled to South Africa, all those businesses, they crumbled down to the ground. So my brothers, currently they are staying there in Namibia, and their wives, they don't even know that these are the things that my brothers did before they had gone to Namibia. So when my brothers were running mad in South Africa, my father then went and visited this other traditional healer. He was then given some charms. So just before the raining season, my father takes some grains and mix it and soak those grains in the water that you would have mixed with the charm. Then we go to the grave of that man that was murdered in a deal gone wrong. And then we just leave the grains there. So when it starts to grain, then the plants will start to grow. So this comforts the spirit of that man that was killed in that deal that went wrong. So these are the rituals that we keep on doing, my brother. But as for my brothers that are in Namibia, whenever I speak with them, they keep on saying that I want to return back home. We need to return back home, but they can't, for they are afraid of running mad, because this is what the relatives of that man who was killed, they said that once they come back, they are going to run mad and no one is going to assist them. Dear listeners, right there was a message that was sent to me by our dear brother right there. Strange things do happen in this world.